Hey everybody. Just doing a quick test right now, just kind of seeing how this whole live stream works, trying to get this all figured out, so bear with me for a little bit here while we kind of get some things figured out. But yeah, basically just here to, like I said, kind of test this out. And if anybody pops on and checks this live stream out, definitely here to kind of answer any questions that anybody may have. If this goes well, we want to try and do this in the future quite a bit more. But yeah, just basically here to kind of test it out, see what's going on. So let's see. Yeah, if anybody, looks like we already got quite a few people jumping on, so that's pretty cool. So apparently this thing's working, which is sweet. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, there is the chat underneath this video, I believe is where it is. So yeah, just go ahead and pop any questions in there. In the meantime, while we're kind of waiting for some questions to come in, one of the things that I noticed on our last video, hey, what's up, everybody? Sweet, I guess this works. This is cool. So yeah, one of the questions that I actually got quite a few, or saw it happen, or asked, whatever, quite a few times, was how much does each plant yield? And that was one of the things that people were wondering about our last harvest. And I just want to kind of talk about that real quick and really bring up the point that it doesn't really matter how much each plant yields. What really matters is how much you yield in your entire garden per light. Cool. Sweet. Nice. Lots of questions coming in. This is awesome. So yeah, thanks for jumping on. But yeah, like I was saying, basically just kind of want to talk about how it really matters how much you're yielding per light. Now, we grow with 1,000-watt high-pressure sodium bulbs, and in the past, a good average, and this honestly isn't even the greatest average, but something that people would shoot for was 1 pound per 1,000-watt light. And that was, a good average-ish. If you were hitting that in a commercial grow, you were doing well. And my background is actually in growing commercially. I used to run a few dispensaries, and we were running massive warehouses pulling down like 50 pounds a month. It was pretty fun. But that's kind of where I got to learn how all of that worked, right? Once I started growing on a smaller scale, we were able to pull, about 1.5 pounds per 1,000-watt light. And then recently, after upgrading to those double-ended 1,000s, we actually pulled 2.23 pounds or 2.3 pounds per 1,000-watt light, so we actually downsized and were able to pull quite a bit more. So really, the reason it doesn't matter how much one plant yields, or it does matter, but the reason it's not really how much does one plant yield is because you can veg one plant for like a month or 2 months, right, and get this thing huge, big, and bushy, and put one plant under one light, and you can pull a pound, 2 pounds sometimes off of a single plant. But if you have, 5 plants under that one light, you're taking up the same amount of space, and each plant might only pull, a 1/4 pound or, 4 ounces, something along those lines. So just kind of wanted to talk about that, but looks like we got a ton of questions coming in. So I'm going to check some of these out and see what's going on. Nice. Somebody says quality's the best I've seen for a stream. Maybe it's because I have a nice webcam. How many plants per light is what James is asking. So it totally depends. So last time when we were running rock wool in our hydro tables, like you guys see in all of our videos, we were putting 6 plants per light. So we run 1 2x4 tray per light, or we were when we had 4 lights. That went down to 3 lights. But we basically have 4 2x4 trays. They're flood tables, and the water comes in above and basically drips through the plant and kind of spits it out back into the reservoir. So we had 6 plants per tray, so we were running only 24 for the entire room. This round, I think we have maybe only 15 plants in the room, because we actually just switched it up, and we actually just made a video today. We'll be pushing that out in the next couple days sometime, maybe next week, about the new garden. And what we're doing is we actually switched this one up, and we're running cocoa just so we can get some new footage and not so we're not showing the same thing over and over again. And honestly, I haven't grown in cocoa before, so I'm pretty excited to kind of try that out. And we're going to document what's going on along the way there. But because we're putting them in 15-gallon smart pots, which is what the medium is now, what the containers are. They're 15-gallon smart pots, and we have a mixture of cocoa and some perlite and a couple other things in there. Because of that, we're actually going to be running fewer plants per light, because the footprint of the plant, those things are about this big, the smart pots. So there's no way we could actually fit 6 plants per light. So we went down in plant size, or down in plant number, but up in plant size. Let's see. What is the easiest type of weed to grow? I would say that, at least when I got started, the easiest type to grow was something that did not take a long time to flower. Something that's 7 to 8 weeks flower time. And the reason being is some of those longer flowering sativas can take up to 12 weeks to flower, and that's just an extra 4 weeks on your growing period, where there's a chance that you can make a mistake, get nutrient lockout, get some pests or diseases, whatever it may be. So when I first started, I started with some of the shorter, bushier indicas. I actually just found a bag seed when I very first started, and found the shortest flowering ones that I could find, and threw those in. And also, it was easier to grow shorter, bushier plants because they, the ceiling height and all that good stuff just kind of allowed me to do that. Let's see. What is my opinion about air pots? Is that what? Yeah, air pots. Do they work well with the rock wool? I have not used air pots. Are those ones? They're like those black plastic ones with the holes in the side of them. Is that what you're talking about? Ollie, just kind of curious there. Let me know, and I will get back around to that. My neighbor, if that is what we're talking about, my neighbor was using those for some of his plants, but he was running soilless mix in them, and they worked very well. They allow a lot of oxygen to get to the roots, and you want oxygen in your roots. My hair is pretty. Thank you. Yeah, usually it's up in the videos, but yeah. What seeds are best to grow, the light ones or the dark ones? I mean, I don't really know based on what the seed looks like. Obviously, you want a healthy seed, and I've seen healthy seeds that are lighter, darker, but most of the time the healthiest seeds that I've seen are, a light brown with some darker brown stripes on them. And really, I just go ahead and germinate quite a few seeds. I usually germinate more seeds than I need, because some of them are going to be a little bit weaker, but it just kind of depends. Usually I germinate them and figure out what's the best based on based on their vigor, how fast they're growing after I germinate them. Indica or sativa is what Scott A was asking. I prefer indica personally. So like the reason I actually started growing, a little bit about me, started growing because I had my spine fused together. So I had scoliosis when I was a kid. I have 2 metal rods in my back, and I actually started growing back in 2000, about 10 years ago. So maybe 2005, 2006, something like that. Right after I moved out of my parents' house, and started growing for medicinal use because smoking actually alleviated the back pain that I would get and muscle spasms, things like that. So that's kind of how I got started there, and that is why I prefer indicas, because they have more of those pain relieving qualities, muscle relaxer, all that good stuff. But I do love a good sativa during the day, so whatever. How do I measure the amount of CBD on my buds? You can either take it to a lab, depending on where you're at. Like here in Colorado, we have quite a few labs, which is cool. But you can send off to labs. But recently, we actually found a pretty cool little test. I don't think I have one right by me. I'll actually make a video about it because we bought them to make a video about them. And they're just these little liquid vials that you put a couple of drops of this solution in, and you put a little nub of your bud, just like a little piece of it, and give it a shake. And there's a little sort of like a litmus test where you would test your pH with a couple drops of the solution. It's like that, but it tests pH. It tests THC and CBDs. So we use those tests. I forget what they're called, but I will make a video about that. Let's see. Man, we got a ton of questions. Sweet, we got quite a few people on here as well. This is cool. Thanks for coming out, everybody. This is, like I said, the first time I tried this. We got this little Wirecast thing, and just going to try this out. Cool sitting here talking to everybody. Let's see. Yeah, I do have a pimple, Raymond. Right there. I'm going to... Yeah, there. That's it. Yeah, thanks. Let's see. What happens if you grow the plant with dirt, not soil? Like outdoor dirt, basically what would happen is, well, first of all, you don't really know what's in that. And I don't know. I've never grown with just dirt from outside. Usually I go with an inert growing medium, such as cocoa or some soilless mix. You can grow organic soil, which is kind of like dirt from outside. It's just a mixture of whatever. But a lot of times if you go dig dirt up from outside, it's not going to... most of that dirt is very compact and hard, and it doesn't have anything to allow the oxygen to get to the plants. To the plant's roots, so you can come across some issues there. If you do want to dig up some dirt from outside, I guess you can do that, but I would definitely amend the soil with some soil amendments, such as perlite, bat guano, earthworm casing, something like that that's going to make it a little more better for your plants. Have you ever thought about using living soil that feeds your plants? Yeah, totally. I am actually reading this book right now. There we go. True Living Organics. There we go. By the Rev. He's actually a dude that writes for Skunk Magazine. And that book is all about they're basically making those super soils that feed your plants. So all you have to do is water them. So I do definitely plan on doing a TLO garden sometime in the near future, because I think that's really cool. So yeah, great question there. What do you think about growing in 6-inch cubes with a mat underneath? That's actually, I believe, what we actually did grow under, or we were growing in, was 6-inch rock wool cubes. I was double stacking them, though, just because more root space is better. But, yeah, those 6-inch cubes, they're pretty cool. And I have thrown like cocoa mats or rock wool slabs underneath, and that helped out quite a bit, but not really enough for me to want to put it in again, because it was just me buying extra rock wool and cocoa mats and shit like that, and it just happened to, I mean, it worked, but it didn't give me an increase in yield or anything, so I just went back to the 6-inch cubes. Do you always flush until you see yellowed leaves? No, not always. I mean, sometimes if you have a really, really healthy grow that doesn't have any yellowing throughout the entire growing cycle, and you start to flush, you're not going to see yellowing. Like, I've harvested plants that were totally green and looked super healthy, like they weren't flushing out at all, and that's just because we had no deficiencies, no lockouts, like no problems throughout the entire grow. So we didn't, if I would have flushed much longer, it would have not really done anything. So not always, no. How long can your plants take high temperatures without taking damage? So like, you're talking Celsius. I'm not 100% sure on the conversions there, but I think 32 is probably up in the maybe like 90s to 100 or something like that. Not for very long, because what happens when it gets really hot, the stomata on those leaves will start to open and close a lot. And what'll happen is it starts to pull all of the moisture from the root zone up into the plant, so that the plant can transpire all of that and like wick the heat off, sort of how your body sweats, how your pores will open up and it'll sweat to cool you off. Well, the plant kind of does the same thing. And basically, when it starts to do that, it'll start taking up all the nutrients as well. It'll really start to burn your plant and cause some issues there. So, like, if that happens, kill a couple of your lights, because I've had that happen before when we didn't have adequate cooling, and I just killed half of my lights and rotated them. So like, flip-flop the lights that are on, so you're running half the lights and your temperatures are not as high, because it's not very good for your plants. Let's see. And yeah, double stacking, what I do mean is the like double stacking. So I would just take 2 rock wool cubes and just set them right on top of each other to Makes the plant a little bit taller, but it also gives them double the root space, which is good. And someone was asking what the name of that book was again. It is True Living Organics by the Rev. So I think it was like a $20 book. So I bet you can find it on Amazon. The Rev is cool. So that dude's really smart. What do I think about changing the bulbs after every grow? That's a great question. So it depends on what you're growing. So the traditional 1,000-watt bulbs that we were using, like those Hortilux, just with the normal socket that you screw in, those do need to be changed, and I think you should definitely change those. Maybe not every cycle, but we change them about every other cycle. So every, 6 months or something like that, we change them, maybe every 5 months. And the reason we do that is because those bulbs tend to lose their intensity quickly, and you have to do that. Otherwise, you'll definitely start to see your yields decrease, but you're using the same amount of power, and that sucks. So that's part of the reason we switched to those new Phantom double-ended 1,000-watt bulbs, because they're much more intense, first of all, but they hold their they put out more lumens for longer, so you don't have to replace the bulbs nearly as often. So with the new technology that's coming out, you don't have to replace them as often, but sometimes, I think you have to replace those maybe every like year or something, maybe year and a half. Honestly, I'm not quite sure. I got to do a little more research on that. But the old bulbs, definitely replace them. These new ones I've only had for a few months, so I'm not sure what my yields are going to do, or really how long they last. Feminized seeds. Let's see. How to plant, spit out some nanas. I'm not quite sure what you're asking, Mondo, if you can pop that in there again. Yeah, let me know there. But let's see. Cool. How do I get a job like you? Dude, that's a hobby grow. So like I used to run big warehouses, and we actually started the dispensary. So like the laws have been really weird here in Colorado, or not weird, but you used to be able to just grow for medical patients, and so we just had a bunch of patients. We had a warehouse. This is how we got started. So we had a big warehouse, a bunch of medical patients, and you were actually just allowed to grow 6 plants per patient you had. And so you stack up those patients. You actually used to be able to buy them from doctors, which was kind of weird, but you buy referrals, and somebody signs you up as their caregiver. You're able to grow their plants, and then as hey, thank you for letting us be your caregiver, we'd give them whatever, an ounce a month or something, and then the rest we would sell. So it was pretty cool. And you used to be able to actually just go around to dispensaries and sell them weed back before they made the law where you could only sell to other dispensaries if you owned a dispensary. So we ended up having to open a dispensary, and so we opened a dispensary that turned into like 3 dispensaries, and I was just the grower for all those. So that's kind of how we got into all that. It was just the natural progression of where the laws were going, and us trying to stay compliant so that we weren't doing anything illegal, because that's like the last thing we want to do, because they're definitely looking out for that. So yeah, that's kind of how all that happened. My indicas are ready to harvest, but the sativas are not. I have to use my grow box for the harvest too. Can I let the indicas go 3 more weeks, or would that be a problem? So that recon that we grow a lot, that's technically done. I've harvested that recon at 6 weeks before, but I let it go to 9 weeks. So just keep an eye on it. So, I'm assuming, I'm not 100% familiar with the grow box, but I'm assuming you have 1 reservoir, and if you flush some of them, you have to flush all of them. So you probably can't just flush specific ones and not the other ones. So I'm not 100% sure what you would do there, but I would say split the difference maybe. Let your indicas go a little bit longer, and they'll be fine. So like what happens when you let them go a little longer is the THC starts to break down a little bit more. The trichomes will start to turn more amber, and you'll get more of the CBDs, CBNs, and the other cannabinoids in there. And so if you just let it go a little longer, it'll just be a little more of a couch lock kind of high. Like you get the body high. It'll be more indica dominant. So if you harvest your indicas a little early, they'll have a little bit more sativa traits and give you a little more of that head high, but you can totally let your indicas go a little longer than you want. What is the point of male plants? So male plants are there to pollinate the female plants and make seeds. Like naturally in nature, the male and female plants grow together. The male plants drop the pollen. The wind blows it all over the female plants, and they start to produce seeds. But when you're growing indoors, you only want to grow female plants unless you're breeding. So like we have some friends around here in Colorado that are breeders, and they will grow specific male plants to get the pollen from them, and then they'll pollinate the females and make seeds. So the male plants make the seeds, they pollinate the females to make the seeds. But you don't want those in your garden if you're just trying to grow Sensimilia or the seedless kind. You just want females in there, because what happens when your garden gets seeded, and I've actually had this happen before, plant that hermaphrodited, and we actually have a video about a hermaphrodite that we're going to be putting out shortly as well. I had a plant that dropped some pollen. It was a female plant, popped a little banana, dropped some pollen, pollinated my entire crop, or everything close enough to it. And what happens is the plant will start to put all of its energy into producing the seeds and not THC. And it won't produce large nugs. It'll just produce all those seeds. So it's not something you want. Let's see. What mediums was I using in the commercial grows that I've been using, or that I used to do? So those commercial grows, we were using, there were a couple different things, but we were using the ebb and flow system, or ebb and grow, I think it was called. And it was basically buckets, and they were filled with hydroton, which is basically expanded clay pellets. And so we were using those, and the water would come through the tubes and like flood up into the buckets and then drain back out. That worked really well on a large scale. We also ran some soilless mix in a couple of those gardens. And I actually just started growing rock wool a couple years ago once I stopped growing commercially. And I really liked it. It was cool. I was using hydroton, but I was having to wash it every time, and I liked rock wool because I could just toss it and be done and get new ones, because I'm kind of lazy sometimes. Best way to treat powdery mildew. Let's see. I mean, so there's some natural cures. I mean, there is Eagle 20. I would not recommend using that. I've definitely used it in the past, and it's a systemic fungicide, and it will basically become part of the plant and prevent powdery mildew forever. But with those systemics, the reason I don't like systemic pesticides and fungicides is because they become part of the plant, and you end up smoking it, and that's not cool. And that's really bad for you, I think. So I try not to get powdery mildew, and the best way to avoid it is to keep everything clean. Make sure you have a nice airflow, your humidity's not spiking too high, and your temperatures aren't getting too high. And then there are also some organic cures for that. I'm not sure what they're called off the top of my head, but you do have to kind of continue spraying them. I know you can spray like baking soda on there, a couple other things, but yeah. Do you really need to pH to grow? Yes and no. So we're growing hydroponically, and if you're growing hydroponically, yeah, you totally have to pH, because there's not much room for error there. If you're growing organic soil, like when I first started, we were growing in a closet, and I was growing organic soil with some organic nutrients, and in that case, I did not need to pH, just because we would bubble it overnight and just kind of feed it. It was kind of like teas, things like that. And what would happen is the microbes in the soil, or the microorganisms in the soil, break down the things you're feeding them and then start to feed the plants. So if you're growing organically, you don't necessarily need to pH. It helps though. You probably should, but you don't have to. When I started, I definitely did not have a pH meter. So feminized seeds are achieved as the female plant matures and pollination occurred. So not necessarily. So the way that feminized seeds are actually made, they're chemically induced hermaphrodites. And what they'll do is they'll spray them with, like, I think it's called silver nitrate or silver. Yeah, I think it's silver nitrate. You can actually buy it. And what they'll do is they'll spray a couple of the plants with the silver nitrate, and it forces them to hermaphrodite. And then those will drop pollen. You don't want a stress-induced hermaphrodite to pollinate your other plants, because then those seeds will have traits that are more likely to hermaphrodite in the future. And then that could seed your crop. Yeah, dude. Alex saying Eagle 20 turns into a form of cyanide when you smoke it. Totally. I don't use that. I don't like it at all. Cool. Yeah, I'm glad everybody digs this so far. Let's see. Do I wash my flowers after I harvest? No, definitely not. I don't, because if you wash them with anything... So first of all, I don't spray my plants at all during flowering. We'll do a couple of foliar feeds during veg sometimes. But unless we have bugs, which, knock on wood, we don't, because we keep our garden nice and clean. Don't let anybody go in there, except for, people with, if I go into one of my friends' gardens, I throw my clothes in the washer as soon as I get home, wash them. I don't wear the same shoes to the garden. I'm like very paranoid about pests and diseases, because they are, first of all, they're a pain in the ass to get rid of, and they hurt your yield, so that sucks. But second, I don't like spraying shit on my plants because I smoke them, and I don't like smoking anything that I spray on them. So I try and keep everything as clean as possible, and usually, and so I don't need to wash my plants or my flowers after I harvest. And also, if you're gonna wash them prior to harvest and let them dry off, because after you harvest them, if you spray them, you could risk mold or bud rot, pythium, any of those things, and that'll really mess up your harvest there. How much did your first setup cost? Dude, I think like maybe $200, and most of that was nutrients. So like my very first grow, what I did is I got a cabinet from the Goodwill, right? And it was like a kitchen cabinet, and I knocked the shelves out of it, and then I took some power strips and got a couple of, and we're actually going to be making a closet grow guide course pretty quickly here, kind of working on all that. Lot in the works, so got a lot of cool things coming up. But what I did is I basically took power strips, and you can get these little things that will basically plug into a power strip or plug into an outlet and turn it into a light socket. And I just plugged a bunch of those, and so I had a bunch of those compact fluorescent light bulbs, those little spiral light bulbs, and I just packed that little cabinet full of those, just on the sides and on the top, and had a fan blowing on it. And so my lighting ended up costing me like $30 or $40 maybe, because I had some power strips laying around. And then the nutrients were the most expensive part. I got some nutrients, a bag of soil, and so I think I was started for like $200, and it was pretty cool. Ended up off of those pulling maybe like 3 or 4 ounces, and it was, and that's really what got me hooked. I was like, this is awesome. I showed some of my friends. They were like, whoa, you grew this in your room? Like, that's crazy. And from there, basically just, bought a bigger light and went from there. For seeds, so somebody was asking, regular, feminized, or autoflower. I've never grown autoflower, so I don't know. I do want to try some of those because I think that's cool. It's something that I've always wanted to try out. But I've grown both. That's like what's my go-to strain. It's King's Kush is my favorite. It's OG Kush crossed with Grape Ape, and that's from Greenhouse Seeds, and that was actually feminized seeds. So we ended up buying 50 seeds and cracking open all 50 of them. I think like 40 of them germinated, and we ended up with about 30 that we put into flower that were showing, strong growth and were nice and strong. Kept notes on every one of them, and kept the one. Well, we actually had 5 that we sent off to the lab to get tested, and I picked the one with the most CBD and THC that yielded the most and had the best bag appeal. So it was a 6-month process because we grew them all out 2 times. It was actually probably more like a 8-month process, but yeah, that was feminized. I've also used regular seeds. I do those quite often now. I usually use regular seeds because my friends that are breeders give me seeds sometimes, and they're regular seeds. They're not feminized. So regular or feminized, I mean, they all work well. When do you stop flushing so you don't flush away the flavor? It depends, I guess. I don't know that you can necessarily flush away your flavor, but what I usually do is we flush, anywhere from 5 to 7 days, really. But that's in hydro because, we can flush it out quickly and easily, so it doesn't take that long. And it's an inert growing medium. Like if you're growing organically, you can't really, you pretty much just feed them water a lot of the time anyway. So yeah, but I don't think you can actually flush it away. How far away do I keep the 1,000-watt bulbs from the plants? So like when I used to run air-cooled hoods, you could keep them a little bit closer, and those we were keeping maybe like 12 to 16 inches away. But we also had a lot of fans blowing in between the canopy and the lights, so that helped out a lot. It was pretty cool. But you can get those really close. The new ones that we have, I was running, those are those double-ended 1,000 watts. Those put off a shitload of heat. So we had those probably like 2 feet away from the plants, and we had a little bit of heat stress, but the nugs were super dense, so I don't think they really need to be that much further away. But I've seen people growing with those like pinned to the ceiling and have them like 4 feet away from their plants because those double-ended lights really throw the light. So yeah. How much did your first hydro setup cost? Ooh. So basically, when I was talking a little bit earlier about kind of how I got started with all this shit, my first hydro setup was not cheap because we got a warehouse. I didn't ever grow hydro in my house on a small scale. I went right to like large scale hydroponic cultivation, which huge learning curve, by the way. Made some huge mistakes for quite some time, or maybe the first harvest or two, because I was learning hydroponics. I was like, oh shit, this isn't what I thought it was going to be like, but great learning experience. But I think that one was probably like after we bought all the equipment, because we went in like, with like 8 lights. Those lights are, $500 a pop by the time you get the bulb, the ballast, and the hood, the fans. I mean, we were probably in it $7 or $8 grand maybe, just because we went on a large scale. But now, you need a light, so I bet you could do it for, if you bought a nice light, hood, reflector, all that good stuff. Nutrients, probably like under $1,000, I would think. No problem with like pumps and all that, especially on a small scale. Probably the light's going to be your most expensive thing. Probably like your light will be maybe $500, and you can get some good deals on lights at hydro stores nowadays too. So yeah, it totally depends on which one you're using. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. I think I'm going to wrap this up in a second here because I do have some other work to do. This is more just like, hanging out. I was testing this out. I do want to do more of these. It looks like we had quite a few people popping on here, which is sweet. A lot of people commenting. It's been awesome. Thanks a ton for coming out. And if anybody does have any specific videos they want us to make, go ahead and pop them in the chat box. I'm pretty sure what happens is this gets pushed out to our channel, and everybody can continue commenting on all that. I'll definitely check those, respond to some of these questions a little bit here and there. But yeah, let's see. Cool. Yeah, and totally. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Yeah, smoke a bowl, right? I was going to, and I totally forgot before I fired this up. I was like, oh shit. I actually just got a new vaporizer in the mail today. One of the awesome benefits of having a channel like this is a bunch of people will reach out and be like, hey, we want to send you some free shit. So we just got a new vaporizer in the mail, charging that up right now. We're going to be doing a review video on that as soon as I get a chance to use it. I was going to do an unboxing video, but I unboxed it already. But I'll put it back in. And so we're going to be doing that. But yeah, it's cool. People send us free stuff sometimes. And yeah, I'm going to be using that. So Cool. Well, yeah, thanks everybody. I'm going to wrap this one up if I could figure out how to kill this recording here. And yeah, we'll be putting out more and more videos. And yeah, thanks again for being subscribers. And if everybody enjoyed this whole Q&A kind of thing, I'll definitely be doing more of these because it's a lot easier than I thought. And it's cool interacting with everybody and having everybody pop their questions in here. So that's it for me. I will see y'all next week or something.